Up, everybody? This is Devin White, linebacker for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You're listening to the LCC Network. Go Bucks!
Hey everyone, welcome to the Commissioners Clubhouse and the LCC Network for our 28th episode of the Fantasy Offseason, our Fantasy Offseason. We have just concluded our offseason waiver wire. We're diving into our quarterback rankings. We've got a lot to discuss with you this evening, and I'm just going to go ahead and get it rolling. We got Jameson and Cody on the show tonight. How's it going, y'all?
I'm all right. Jameson.
I'm excited. I mean, did you guys know? I don't know if I told you guys this. I've been quarantined to my house because I was potentially around someone positive at work. So I've had nothing to do over the weekend. I've been working on rankings and show docs.
Jesus,
I
you
don't know if
probably
you guys
got
do that or
everyone
not.
sick. You're such an asshole. No, I'm just kidding. No, you told me. Earlier in the week, but
Yeah. Yeah. So I've been doing this and I've been having a blast. I've been looking at my receiver rankings that I've already got ready for next week, and I think I'm gonna make some people pretty angry when we get to next week's episode. So it's gonna be fun. Uh, but, but I'm excited. Like Pat mentioned, we've got quarterbacks here for this week, and we're gonna do a very very brief waiver wire review now that it's over. So guys, are you ready to jump in?
I'm
let's do
ready.
it. Ooh, you mixed it up. Ooh, I like
I
that.
mixed I mixed it up, man.
we
I
got
mean,
we got something different this week.
we had to give that a break. Yeah, we had to give it a break. All right, guys, just real quickly, nothing too long or crazy. Everyone knows the picks, so we don't have to go super depth. But the waiver wire kind of took place over the last couple of week or so, I guess. What were your thoughts? I mean, any picks that you liked, didn't like, any surprised picks that you thought, wow, that was great, or that was terrible, or I can't believe that guy got picked. Anything that jumps to mind?
I'll start this off, and I'll start it off with the very first pick of the evening. And I think, Melvin was a questionable thing. I think when you have that first pick in that waiver wire, it is crucial to either go for the very best or the potential to be the very best. That can't miss because you're way back there, and that first round pick isn't going to be as great. So you need to hit. And I understand the move in terms of running back. Personally, obviously, I definitely thought there was a better running back on the board, and Patrick ended up with that guy, and that's probably one of my more likable picks personally.
Thank you.
Um, yeah. But no, man, I definitely thought it was a reach. Like I'm not very high on how many reps he's gonna get. I know he's gonna be fine. He's definitely gonna be a borderline back one, maybe he's a two. But I just feel like when you got that spot right there, you need to take a player that has the potential to be the best at that position, and then we're a couple out there.
I agree. Yep.
Yeah, for me, I wasn't totally against the Melvin Gordon pick. I understood where Mike was coming from because of the fact that he's had him for multiple years and he's seen the ups and downs week to week, probably more than most people have. And that was his exact reasoning when he told me why he didn't go Tyreek Hill there and why he went Melvin Gordon. To
Oh,
me,
and
yeah,
it's not even Tyreek Hill either. Like, I mean, I thought Derwin James is one of those guys too.
mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And there were other receivers that were definitely worthy. You know.
Mm-hmm. I thought
What
one
do
of
you
the
guys?
I thought one of the
Good.
surprising ones for me was Keanu Neal in the first. I understand the reasoning behind it because he has the potential to be a stud defensive back, but me more than anyone, I haven't seen it, and God only knows how long. I'm pretty sure I was still living in South Carolina the last time Keanu Neal had a complete season. So if that says anything,
Has he? Has he had a complete season? I don't even know if he has.
the most complete, I'll put it that way.
Yeah, the where everyone kind of got excited, but no, I totally agree with you. Like I wasn't excited with the pick. Um, I thought there was another safety out there that could have been, you know, uh, that I think is going to be a little more productive. I don't know. I thought it was a reach. I know the talent's there, so maybe it'll pay off. But it's the injury history that makes him a lower target for me.
So how about this, guys? At least 4 teams. There may have been more. I don't think I missed them, but there may have been more. At least 4 teams drafted 2 receivers. So you can only have 2 unless you flex, unless you're the only person you get. You can only have one position with 3 players.
Mm-hmm.
So most guys then that did that locked up their receiver core before going into the draft. Do you think that's interesting
I
that
thought it was
guys
pretty
decided to make
smart.
that distinction?
I thought it was actually pretty smart. I mean, if you're the type of person like I don't want to have to waste my draft picks on a receiver. I want to focus on building like a really strong running back core or just like one of the better defenses in the league. I think that was a pretty smart move because some of the guys who did do it were people like who ended up going after like a Juju Smith-Schuster, right? Who's not amazing, but I think compared to some people starting receiver, he is going to be kind of amazing. So he went ahead, like I think it was my dad was one of those teams who ended up going receiver twice. I'm trying to remember who the second
Yeah,
one
he did.
was.
Michael Gallup was the
Yeah,
second one.
which
Yeah.
isn't terrible. I mean, he's his backup, so on that bye week, that one bye week, Michael Gallup could end up having like a 20 plus point game, you know?
Yeah, that's all you need on a bye week, I think, sometimes. Um, I got to give props to a guy, and I hate doing this because it's going to go straight to his head. We're not going to hear the end of it. Um, but I got to give props to Cameron for how he worked the waiver wire. So OBJ, I was actually really impressed to see OBJ fall. I'm not super high on him this year. I thought for sure somebody was going to not be able to resist and jump on him early, and he dropped, I think, down to like pick 19 or something like that, which I was very impressed with. I think that's solid value. And then Cameron came around on the second turn and got Josh Allen, who I'm very high on as a defensive end. So I gotta give Cameron props for how he did that. I thought he worked it very well. I thought he got the right guys at the right value. And I hate doing this because we're gonna hear this in the group chat for like 4 days. But good job, Cameron.
No, I thought it was good. I mean, Josh Allen was going to be my pick. Honestly, it was him or Danny Trevathan. I knew I wanted to go defense at that pick at that point because my ultimate goal is for DK to fall to me, but I knew the likelihood of that happening was pretty slim. So, I mean, I would have gone Josh Allen if he wasn't there. Or if he would have
Yeah,
been there, yeah.
I think somebody that I really liked also was I like Matt's waiver wire as well. Getting Jonathan Abrams, who I
Yeah,
think
I
is
did like
well
Jonathan Abram.
actually yeah, well actually value ahead of Keanu. Um, so I definitely thought he got good value there. His second round pick, I'm actually quite high on personally as a player. The Lions really didn't address the middle linebacker issue too much in the offseason. So Gerard Davis, I think it was a nice pickup. I definitely think he's going to be a starter, and I mean he's definitely going to be roster worthy. So
Oh,
that's
for
just
sure,
another
yeah.
guy. Like in the end, like he just got 2 roster guys. So, and I think that's what you're going for in the waiver wire. Just go ahead and get 2 guys that are going to fill out your roster. If you can get a guy that has top 5 potential, you do it. If not, then you get a guy that's definitely going to be on somebody's roster and you don't have to worry about it. It's a little less.
yeah. I gotta say, very good job, guys. I was pretty impressed. I mean, normally these things tend to go a little bit wild in our
Yeah.
groups. I was actually very impressed at how um, kind of normal that it went. Players for the most part went in the order I thought they were going to go, or that I would have had them go. Uh, it was very normal. It was very very normal. A couple of picks like the Chauncey Gardner Johnson pick, the Curtis Samuel pick. I mean, okay, I guess. I mean, late second, but beyond that, I mean, it was pretty normal. So
I want to put like one out there. And Jordan's the only one that did it. Jordan's the only one that pulled a trigger on a quarterback. And I think that's a very cool
No,
yes.
we had
thing.
two quarterbacks, Cam Newton as well.
Oh, outside of Cam Newton. Okay,
Well,
yeah, yeah,
outside of
yeah.
Newton,
Okay,
yeah,
well, I mean, I guess this
yeah,
whole thing will like run into Cam Newton. So Storm and Jordan basically end up going into the draft, and like I really think it's a
that's their
cool
starter.
position because it doesn't have to be their starter, but I mean, I think we all have those both those guys inside the top 24. So those are starter caliber like players. At the same time as like if someone drops to you in the draft, you can take them. Like if it's a good value pick, I think it really helps like decipher the draft a little bit. If you really don't want to overspend, if somebody drops like real far, like if I'm not mistaken, like uh Dak Prescott got taken like one of the last picks in our draft or one of the last rounds in our draft last year. Like, you know what I'm saying? So like if a value drops like that to a certain player, obviously Dak's probably not gonna drop like that again. But I just think it adds that value. You know, you don't have to go in there thinking, man, I need to go find a quarterback and spend a little too high. You got a guy that like, hey, I'll fall back on this guy if nothing comes to me in a correct and like timely manner.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just think it's a cool strategy, and I think I think it'll be like it should be like used more later on because Teddy Bridgewater maybe should have got taken as well as Ben
Big Ben.
Roethlisberger, huh?
Yep. Yeah, Big Ben didn't get taken. Yep.
Yeah, so I think both of those guys definitely had an opportunity. They both have an opportunity to be top 24 quarterbacks, and that's the only reason I named them. Like all four of the quarterback, there were four quarterbacks in that waiver hour that have an opportunity to be top 24.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like it. I'm excited to see what happens with it. You know, 'cause, I mean, if you're picking them, you're really putting a lot of confidence in saying, you know, if I don't, as long as I don't waste this pick, like this guy's gonna make my roster. He's gonna be my starting quarterback. So, and I think Jordan's gonna have to be very positive about. He's gonna be happy to hear some of the positive things I have to say about Drew Lock on tonight's episode. So, all right, you guys, are we ready for rankings?
Let's do it.
Okay, you want me to play the Madden 20 intro, Pat, or should we give it a week? Give it a week off.
I don't know what else you got. What else you got in the
Right now,
in your ammo?
Nothing right now because I got a lot of the owners and I got the Kyler Murray drop and everything in here too.
Dude,
so.
Storm's drop. I was just talking about him, and we'll drop him. Storm. No.
I don't know if you have that one.
Storm. Yeah, you don't.
I do.
I'm gonna get it all up in your bag.
That's perfect. That's the way I want to start it. Let's do this.
That's how we'll start it. All right. All right, guys. So number one here, consensus number one, Pat Mahomes. Cody, Patrick, you both have him there. I've got Lamar Jackson, number one. Number two, Lamar Jackson. I think every fantasy expert in the world has those guys 1 and 2 in whatever order.
Well, not really. Well, I mean, I guess Patrick's not an expert, but Patrick's got.
Oh, that's right. Patrick, what are you doing? I didn't even see this.
Yeah.
Gosh.
I am one of the very few people, and I mean, everyone here in the league knows my feelings about Kyler Murray 2019. 2020, man, I'm going all in on Kyler Murray. I don't have him at 1.
Cow.
I've got him at 2. I've got him at 2.
Dude, Pat,
Holy cow. Okay.
I genuinely want to say that, like, I've been talking to, like, certain people kind of in that, like, 11 to 7 range in fantasy.
Yeah.
And I've, like, been talking Kyler Murray up so much. I believe that Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson deserve to be 1-2, and I think they've proven that. But I also think that Kyler Murray is probably going to win the MVP this year. I'm just, like...
Dude, I'm all aboard. The weapons in Arizona are no freaking joke. Like, I'm telling you, I love Kyler Murray. Not necessarily because I do think Kyler Murray is a good quarterback and all, but I just think he's got enough weapons there where he has no excuse to not to be a top 3 fantasy quarterback this year. And because of that, I've got to assume, my opinion, Lamar Jackson regresses just a little. Not a lot, but just a little. And if Kyler Murray is going to uptick, I think that puts him at number 2. That, in my mind, I've got him as my number 2 quarterback.
Man, Patrick, the 360, or not the 360, the 180 you have made.
Yeah, I know, right?
The pre-2019 draft. Like, I remember going to the draft, and you're like, there's no way Kyler Murray goes 1. There's no way. That's ridiculous. The Cardinals would never do such a stupid thing. And then they did, and you were like, that's a terrible pick. And now here we are a year later, and he's number 2 in your – this is – oh,
yep.
Man,
exactly.
I don't even know what to think right now. I'm just – here, how's this?
Ooh. Yes,
There's
I was waiting for
Murray
it.
drop. Yeah, so Kyler Murray, consensus 3. Russell Wilson, consensus 4. Number 5, Dak Prescott. Number 6, Deshaun Watson. So I think this is probably the lowest Watson's been in a fantasy ranking since probably his rookie season, guys. I mean,
Yeah.
I think a lot of this has to do with losing Deshaun Watson, right? Um,
No.
no, a terrible. There's no GM in the NFL or in the Texans office. Uh, there's no offensive line. Um, I don't know what everyone's thoughts are on David Johnson, but I mean, are these the reasons why Deshaun Watson has slowly dropped down our fantasy rankings?
I
I
just,
mean,
in my opinion, their offensive line still isn't great. They didn't add really any help there for Deshaun. Feel like to be great. He's going to be a good fantasy quarterback and a good quarterback in the NFL. But I just, I like Russell Wilson's situation a little bit more. I like Murray's situation. I obviously like Jackson and Mahomes' situation better than
I mean,
Deshaun.
let's call it what it is. Is like every one of those people in front of him have the weapons. It
Exactly.
just
Yeah.
doesn't like it is what it is.
Yeah, his floor will stay high because of his rushing ability, but I agree with you guys. I think his situation is just not as good as he doesn't have the tools that the other guys have, for sure. All right, and then kind of into our next tier. So I mean, that's Lamar Mahomes is kind of like a tier on their own, like you mentioned off the show, Cody. And you got the Murray to Watson kind of group, and then you kind of get into this next tier here that I think you can still win a lot of games with, but they clearly don't have the floor that the top 6 guys do. Matt Ryan at number 7. We've seen him, a lot like Patrick's 180 with Kyler Murray. Matt Ryan can be QB1 or he can be QB19, on
Yeah.
any given season.
Yeah.
So you really, you don't really know what you're getting every year with him. Aaron Rodgers at number 8. He was number 11 last season. He doesn't have a lot to throw to besides Devontae Adams. But we do see a little bit of improvement there. Drew Brees at 9, Josh Allen at 10, Carson Wentz at 11, and then we'll stop here for a second. Tom Brady at number 12. Guys, do you feel what are the thoughts on Wentz here? I mean, Cody, you've got him a little bit higher than we do. Last year he was QB7, but that's because Mahomes got hurt ahead of him. Drew Brees got hurt ahead of him. I think we expect more from Brady this year. He's kind of been on the outside of that top 12 for a little while now. Pat, what are your thoughts on Wentz and his weapons?
I think Wentz is in a situation where I don't know about you guys, but if I'm an Eagles fan, I've seen Carson Wentz over the years. Obviously, as a Panther fan with Cam Newton, got us to a Super Bowl on his own, obviously with the defense's help. Wentz hasn't really done that for the Eagles yet, but he's had the kind of same injury history almost, and a more banged up receiving and running back core at times than Carolina ever did. I do wonder, like Wentz, how much longer does he have until his job's in jeopardy? He's obviously a good quarterback now, but they're not getting I feel like the results that they should have been getting from Wentz at this point in his career. And because of that, that's what kind of worries me about Wentz and why I have him a little bit lower, I feel like. I'm trying to look at where I've got him compared to you guys, but I've got him at
11.
11, which is right where he is in our consensus. So that makes sense to me, but that's kind of why I had him a little bit lower, I feel like, compared to like Cody, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, for me, man, like I just think that he finished 7 last year, and I understand there were some injuries, but at the same time, like, look at the receiving core he's throwing to. Like, and I think it's just kind of picked up a little bit. They added some pieces here and there. Um, I don't know, man. Like, people aren't injured. Like, I think he's gonna have a better year. I mean, let's not forget. Like, was it probably 3 seasons ago? He was basically the shoe in for the MVP. Um, I mean, he can play in this league. I understand he's had some of the injury concerns, which, I mean, it's not like I have Cam Newton that low. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So at the same time, like, I'm not really putting a cap on them for that injury or anything like that. I just think he's still got the potential. He's still really, really good. I think he's had a couple of like years where it's either injury or like his cast has been injured like crazy. I think this year, man, they have a running back in place that they know is going to be that guy, that can be that guy. They've got some guys on the outside that drafted Rager. They got JJ, which is probably going to be a. I mean, maybe he can take a second step. Hopefully, he can. Um, I think they might cut Deshaun Jackson. I don't know what's up with that, but they got Ertz. I don't know. I think their weapons are a lot better, so I think he's going to be a much improved. If he doesn't get injured, that's it.
Okay. I'll say consensus 11 to me sounds like perfect. I think
Yeah.
that's a really good spot. I've said it before. I think our consensus is I always agree more with the consensus ranking sometimes than I do my own rankings because I
Yeah.
feel like it filters out as much of the like bias and things as possible. You know what I mean? And almost every position, every time we do these, I tend to agree with them more, and I like him at number 11 there. To keep moving here, number 13, Cam Newton. So I think his floor is high because of his rushing ability, right? There are questions about health. There are questions about talking about a guy who has no weapons to throw to. I mean, Edelman's 5'8", and Cam Newton has a reputation for soaring balls over heads of receivers who are much taller. So we'll see what happens. Jared Goff at 14, Ryan Tannehill at 15, Big Ben 16, Baker all the way at 17, Stafford 18, Phillip 19, Phillip Rivers, and then Teddy B down at number 20. So we'll take a break here, guys. It's basically from 14 down to like 20. This feels like a big cluster of guys that it doesn't really matter who you get. Like, am I right to feel that way? Like, if I got Big Ben versus like Phillip Rivers, or like, I feel like my fantasy season would be pretty much the same.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I don't think. Obviously, they're both, especially those two in particular, Big Ben and Philip Rivers, both nearing the end of their career. You look at their situations with their offenses; they have weapons there. Obviously, they could both be successful there. But
What did Cody say?
I don't know.
I said stop it.
Stop it. I think that these guys are very similar in their fantasy production for 2020. I'm kind of like you. I mean, if I got Big Ben versus a guy like even like Baker Mayfield, I wouldn't bat an eye to that. It wouldn't bother me.
Dude, Big Ben's gonna outperform Rivers. It's not even. Dude, I'm just saying, like, I don't know, like Rivers, like outside of injury, Rivers look like crud. Like, but Big Ben, like, if Big Ben's playing, normally he looks pretty good. I understand he's coming off an injury, but still, I think he's
Oh,
gonna look okay. Like, I think he's a strong, big man. And he's gonna
strong
get it
big.
done.
He's a big man. That's for sure. That's for sure.
You know what the funniest thing is Cody is defending it. I mean, he's the lowest on him of the three of us.
Yeah.
He's got him at 18. Pat, you've got him at 15. I've got him at 17. And funny enough, I bring up the question, but then I've got the biggest gap between Phillip Rivers and Big Ben on my list. Phillip down at 21 and Big Ben at 17. I mean, Stafford, they all kind of feel like they're in that group. They're capable quarterbacks, some of them with very long careers, weapons, and we'll see how it goes, in 2020. But I would be fine if you're going to wait on a quarterback, you're going to wait till round 5 or 6 or something like that, round 7. I would be fine with any of them if I waited that long, right? And I feel like if you do wait that long, that's what you have to be comfortable with, because I would imagine that, the Bradys and the Rodgers and all will be gone by that round. But
Okay, I got something for you. Over
Yeah.
under 4 from 14 down can finish in the top 13.
from 14 down, can finish in the top 13.
Yeah, and the over under is 4.
Over under is 4.
I would say under then.
Yeah, I'm gonna go under. I'm gonna say 3. 3 guys could finish in the top 13
You
in
name
that
them?
group.
Can you name them?
Jared Goff, Ben Roethlisberger, and some guys might not like this, but I'm gonna say Matt Stafford could be in that group.
Ugh, gross.
I like
Oh my
it.
god. Oh my god. You just say that.
I like Matt Stafford. Man.
Oh, I know you
don't
do.
mind I don't mind Matt Stafford either.
I think as a pure passer, right? Like not a quarterback, right? We're not talking about like, the ability to like, reading schemes or footwork or nothing like that. As a pure thrower, I think Stafford is like one of the best in the league. It's just a pure thrower. I know it's just 1 point of being a quarterback, but still, I like him a lot.
Yeah.
Where were we?
I don't even know. We
That was
were
my
talking about
other
under and
idea.
over who can finish in the top 13.
Oh,
I
that's
mean,
right. That's right.
Mine
Well,
are
do you
Dwayne
agree with those
Haskins.
three?
I think Dwayne Haskins, Nick Foles, Tua are on my 3. They're definitely. No, I'm just
Wow.
kidding. I'm just joking.
That is big.
Come on, man.
No, I would say honestly a guy that I think Big Ben. I'm the highest on him. I think he has potential. I like his weapons with Juju over there, and I think they have some other young guys that could help Pittsburgh surprise some people. But I'm going back over to look at some of the other rankings. But are we including Ryan Tannehill as who could finish in the top 13? So we have him at 15.
Yeah,
If you want to. Yeah.
I'm going to pick Ryan Tannehill because of that rushing ability for me. And then I'm going to have to go with. That third one's going to be tough. I'm going to go with Drew Lock.
I feel
Ooh,
Lock's got
okay.
a ton of weapons, man. Ton.
Yeah.
He does.
Yeah.
He does. Speaking of Drew Lock, 2021, Kirk Cousins 22, Drew Lock. Let's stop here for just a second. Guys, I feel very good about it. And maybe Cody's just convinced me over the last few weeks. I don't know. But I've got a really soft spot for Drew Lock in my fantasy heart.
And now you
I
can't even
got a
roster him. Now you can't
And
even
now
roster
can't
him.
even roster him. Thanks a lot, George. I've got him at number 19, and I think this is better for Drew Lock than it is for his fantasy weapons. Individually, their fantasy scores themselves, but he's got a ton of stuff there. I mean, Cortland Sutton, Deshaun Hamilton, Jerry Jeudy, Noah Fant, Melvin Gordon, Phillip Lindsay, a solid offensive line, a great defense. He could easily. He could. I don't want to say easily be a top 13 guy, but let's say if he finished 13, I wouldn't be super surprised. I'll just put it that way.
No, I agree. I mean, they actually can run the ball now, if you like, with what they have there in their backfield, so they can take a little bit of the pressure off Lock. I think open up some passing lanes for him.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you said my name, but like, I love Drew Lock, but most of all, what I love about Drew Lock is what's around Drew Lock, and like anybody that's got that around them, and he showed like he can throw the ball last year, like he's a capable passer, and when you have those type of guys and you're growing in the NFL, maybe he's one of those type of players. Like, I mean, did he go in the first round? Do y'all?
No, he was a second round pick.
Yeah.
I think.
Even then,
Yeah.
like, you know what I'm saying? Like, obviously, somebody saw something. Second round pick is a high value. I mean,
Well, I remember in college, people were saying he was the most like NFL ready quarterback at one point, which I thought was a bunch of BS.
I did too. Probably
but-
still think that. No.
Yeah, I kind of do. I will say, if there's a guy who could finish in the top 13 this year, but then regress out of it, it's Drew Lock. Because I think he does rely so much on his weapons versus his arm talent alone.
Yeah.
I just think he's misunderstood so far because I mean last year he didn't get a lot of chances until near the end of the season. What I saw from him near the end of the season I really liked, and then they ended up getting a lot better around him by adding Melvin and the receivers that they added, as well as they added a tight end? Am I correct?
Well, I know I think they did add a tight end
Yeah. Well,
with
I mean,
Noah Fant. They had Noah
yeah.
Fant. I think they drafted another one.
Well, anyways, getting another tight end and stuff like I mean, it's just it's what I seen from him, and the fact that I know that they're putting a cast around him. Like I just think that and the maturity level is just gonna mesh really well this year, and hopefully it's like a Patrick Mahomes type thing. Like that's what I think it could be, because I mean I don't know. Maybe not that quite that year, obviously, but like I think that's what it. Because everyone, I mean, Pat Mahomes got picked up off a waiver wire that year, did he not?
Not in our side. He got drafted in our side.
No, I picked him up off a waiver wire myself. Yeah, I remember Jordan telling me to do it, which is funny, is because I told Jordan to take Lockett in this one, so maybe he gets the same returns.
So, and then outside of our top 20, so starting at 23, this is the group that gets really ugly. If you've got this group here, you might be in for a rough season. Um, and somebody will have a couple of these guys. Daniel Jones at 23, Sam Darnold at 24, Joe Burrow, the highest rookie on the board, at 25.
I'm the rookie of the year. I'm the rookie of the year. I'm the rookie of the year.
Gardner Minshew, 26, Jimmy Garoppolo, 27, Derek Carr, 28, Justin Herbert, 29, Tua, 30, Nick Foles, 31, and Dwayne Haskins rounding out the quarterback rankings here. So, guys, any thoughts on some of these guys here? I mean, I've got Daniel Jones a little bit higher than that ranking, but other than that, I'm pretty low on most of this group and do not want any of these guys on my fantasy team at all this year.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. And the scary thing about it is like somebody's gonna have to own a Daniel Jones or a Sam Darnold.
You know what's? I think I was the highest on Sam Darnold. Not saying that like I'm enthusiastic to have him, if I was to get him, but I do think kind of similar to Drew Lock. Like I felt like I still haven't seen enough of Sam Darnold to make a full judgment call yet on him. I get it. He's on a bad team, and he's been on a bad team, and he'll probably continue to be on a bad team. But I would like to take a full season at this point in his career, what that looks like for him.
What sucks is his weapons just probably got worse.
Yeah, they really did.
It
They
wasn't
really
even
did.
that good to begin with. Like,
Robbie Anderson, losing him was like a big deal in New York.
yeah, I mean, you add
Yeah.
names, but yeah, it's definitely not a Robbie Anderson. Like, they need Le'Veon Bell to be Le'Veon Bell.
Well, and another off season, not with his team practicing, not in the playbook, not at the level that he would be, right? If he was in camp and had preseason games. I mean, just another chance that he could have had to practice with his guys taken away. So, not to mention he's got Matt Gase as his head coach too, and he's one of the worst coaches on the league. I freaking hate Matt Gase.
Well,
So-
I'll say this: he did get himself a left tackle, so maybe that'll help.
Yeah, they did do that. I wonder if that helps. I think it definitely helps Le'Veon a lot. I'm not sure what
Yeah,
it's going to do for the
That's
passing
why
game.
I'm a little higher on Le'Veon than y'all were, probably.
I don't remember. Hold on. I can see where we were. I think we had him around like 17 or something like that. Oh, 20. He was consensus 20 because of Patrick. So you had him at 16. I had him at 17. Patrick had him at like 19 or 21 or something like that.
Patrick's a crazy
Way to go,
guy.
Patrick.
Yeah.
So,
He does.
guys, now that we've seen the rankings here, we've talked a little bit about, who could finish high or low or things like that. Who are the most difficult quarterbacks to rank? Because there are guys who are listening to this podcast right now wondering, okay, that's what you guys had him, but like what any more analysis? Like, who are the most difficult guys you had putting in a slot somewhere? Cody, you mentioned Baker Mayfield off the show,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's because he's loaded everywhere, but is he going to load his pants again? Like, he wasn't very.
What? Load his pants again?
Yeah, like, is he going to crap himself? Like, he just didn't play very well. I thought that was a good transition.
He has. I will say, my
Like,
worry about him as a fantasy quarterback is the fact that Kevin Stefanski is there. I mean, we've mentioned that before, but he has a ton of weapons. So if he's not successful this year, at that point, you have to blame Baker Mayfield because I mean, Austin Hooper, they paid him a lot of money. OBJ's there, Jarvis Landry, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, a solid offensive line, David Njoku. I mean, if you cannot win with those weapons, at that you have to look at moving away from Baker Mayfield, I think, if they have another bad season. So yes, he's difficult to rank. What about you, Pat?
I think for me, it was honestly Teddy Bridgewater. As a Panther fan, obviously I was trying to remove my bias from that, and I feel like I did a pretty good job. I don't have him that super high on my list. But to me, he was a little difficult to place. I mean, he averaged 20 points a game last year when he was the backup on a loaded New Orleans Saints offense compared to Carolina.
I mean, no. A loaded Saints offense, a very good offensive line, one good receiver, and a good running back, and then a average running back.
But
Jared Cook's a good tight end.
Yeah, he is.
Oh, Jared Cook's a
Well,
little above average tight end. A little above
okay.
average. Are you
Okay.
serious?
This is
What,
that
you're
Clemson
giving
bias
him?
coming out.
Oh no! Go look at his numbers. He has no reason for him to be. First of
Well,
all, it has nothing to do with him going to South Carolina. He's really not that great. He's been with ridiculously like good quarterbacks everywhere he goes. Like what he spent some time in Seattle, spent some like let's go play with some Russell Wilson, let's go play with some Aaron Rodgers, let's go play with some
well,
Drew Brees. Like give me a freaking break. Like and he still doesn't put up elite numbers. I'm sorry, like I'm not impressed with I've never been impressed with Jared. I mean
well. All right.
Cook.
Let me bring it back to the point though. Kyle Allen last year, right, who didn't play the full season because Cam played unfortunately the first couple of games. Kyle Allen finished as the 27th best fantasy quarterback in our league last year, averaged 30 points per game. Now, I think we can all agree Teddy Bridgewater is a much better fantasy and real quarterback in the NFL than Kyle Allen ever was or will be. But so that makes you think, all right, if 30 was his average of a starting quarterback in Carolina last year with fewer weapons than this year, Teddy Bridgewater should put up more than that on an average. So to me, that's what made that extremely difficult because last year I still didn't see the kind of production I wanted to see out of a guy who's going to be a starting quarterback in Carolina or a starting fantasy quarterback for that matter. But at the same time, if Kyle Allen can average 30 points per game in that very mediocre Panther offense, I just, I don't know. That made it extremely hard for me to rank Teddy.
And you know what would like provide like a roadmap to that basically is like how different we are on them. Like I think y'all are a lot lower on them than I am.
Yeah, you've got him at 15. I've got him at 23. Pat's got him at 24.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I
for all
like
of that, how good Teddy is, he's the lowest on
Yeah.
Teddy Bridgewater in the ranking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Teddy, man.
Yeah, and but that's what I'm saying. That's what made it so hard for me, just because in my head, all right, so Kyle Allen was 27, didn't play the full season. I obviously think Teddy's going to finish better than that. So in my head, that's kind of where I placed him, was a few spots ahead of that. So
I just think you literally got a cheat code right next to him and CMC, and then you got three solid receivers, and then I think y'all have a nice tight end. To be honest with you, I think he's gonna like hopefully come on this year. But
yeah,
So, I think the most difficult one for me, just real quickly, Pat, how are we on time? Where are we at?
we are at 15 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. We're at 38 minutes exactly.
We got to wrap it up. I had problems with Dak Prescott. I expected a lot of regression, but then as I was doing my receiver rankings, I had 3 Cowboys in the top 50. I was like, well, maybe I need to readjust Dak again. And I went back and looked at his stats. His first season, 459 pass attempts. Last season, 596 pass attempts. And you would think, well, maybe that's because Zeke regressed, but no, Zeke still had over 300 carries last year and only 50-something targets. So, I mean, I really wanted to say he was going to be lower, but after looking at the numbers, I think his passing volume could easily stay on track with what it was. And if that's the
For
case,
sure.
if that's the case, he's a top 5 quarterback again, easy.
I mean,
if not a top 3 quarterback.
His average was higher than Pat Mahomes, is higher than Deshaun Watson, higher than Carson Wentz, Kyler Murray. I mean, the dude was the number 2 quarterback in overall points, but also in like second in average points per game too.
Yeah. So it was tough. I had him at like 6 at one point, then I had him at like 3, and then I had trouble like moving him around, but ultimately settled at 4, and he's our consensus 5. So, all right, guys. Before we go, real quickly, so in the new rules, you can only have one quarterback, right? You're not going to be able to stream him anymore unless you want to let go your quarterback and hope that you get him back. But how is this new system going to change how you draft quarterbacks? I mean, some guys already answered that question by drafting off the waiver wire, right? Is it going to change for you? Are you going to draft them higher? Are you going to not care as long as you get somebody in a certain tier at a certain point? I mean, is this going to change at all how you pick quarterbacks?
I'm either going all in or I'm waiting till the very end. I'll put it that way.
I feel you on that.
Yeah, if you
Pat.
don't get a guy by the third round, you basically could wait till like round 12 anyway, because nobody's gonna be able to pick more than one,
Yeah.
right? So there's no point in being at the back of that stream unless you're gonna be at the very back of the draft. That's a good point.
I think drafting fantasy quarterbacks turns out to be like a beauty contest. No, it really does, and the way I mean by that is the fact that like who draft where did James Winston get drafted last year? Where did James Winston finish in fantasy? Like
He
Yeah.
finished as the third best quarterback last year.
where did he get drafted in y'all's?
I don't even
I don't
remember.
even know if he got. I don't know. I have no clue.
I think he got drafted. But I just don't remember where.
Man, the way I look at it is the fact that like all these top guys are gonna go in. Most of them are gonna be top guys, but there are gonna be guys that don't go that are in this middle tier that we see right here. That they're not the greatest in terms of actual numbers, and they're gonna throw picks, and they're gonna not be the most consistent people. But at the end of the day, they can be championship winning quarterbacks. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll put it like this: the first time I won a championship, I won it with Matthew Stafford. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Boom.
So like, you can win.
Get out of here, Jameson. Get out of here.
You want to crown him? Then crown him.
But like, so it doesn't have to be like it doesn't have to be all in on these top notch quarterbacks. Definitely, it's all about value. Wherever you can find them, like if it's a good value, grab them. Like the waiver wire thing's a really cool thing because it allows you to really set the market for just value picks as you draft. It gives you that comfortability. Like you don't have to reach on a quarterback just to get a QB. But that's where I stand.
All right, guys. Well, that is it for this week. Next week we're doing receiver/tight ends, so pass catchers. There will be 50 of them. So we have a lot of work to do throughout the week. We're excited to bring that to you. Anything else before we head out, guys?
See you guys next week.
Yeah.
All
Bye.
right. See ya.